Casey Tremper, and I work at the URI Coastal Resources Center and Rhode Island Sea Grant. And I am the one charged with trying to keep y'all engaged in this process as we've been moving forward, and try and provide as much information as possible. So thank you to everybody that's been supportive in this project, including of course the town of Charlestown, as well as CRMC, DEM, the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank, as well as all of our senators and representatives that have been extremely supportive throughout, and Salt Ponds Coalition for being a wonderful partner. So, this is a quick outline. We're going to do our little welcome. I'm going to talk a little bit about the community outreach efforts. Steve's going to talk about funding information and a little bit about permitting. We'll have Emily Hall from CRMC to also talk a little bit about the permitting and designs, which will go into next steps, and then we will take questions. So just to kind of start us off from the beginning, you can see on the left is sort of where we started with the Breachway after the December 2023 and January 2024 storms, and the breach that actually occurred. And then the other picture is, thanks to Steve, of July 30th, so just recently, and you can see how even just the emergency repair has allowed the Breachway to be intact a bit more, as well as start to build back that beach on the far side. So some of the outreach efforts that we have done so far have included just after the emergency repair in October, inviting people out to see what had been done, as well as right before the season started, just trying to engage you all in what the season was going to look like with the Breachway, having only had the emergency repair and not having that full restoration, just trying to understand what to expect. We also did a variety of social science outreach focus groups and surveys done by URI, Dr. Emily Diamond, and we saw that a lot of users were somewhat or very concerned about these impacts and concerned about coastal erosion in general in Charlestown, and y'all are really interested in the Breachway and making sure that it is supported moving forward, and 45% of users at the very beginning did not feel engaged, so hopefully these presentations and things have been starting to help you feel a bit more engaged about that. These are some of the words that were most commonly used when we asked what does resilience mean to y'all in Charlestown. And so a few of the other things we have, these postcards, which the QR code originally, I'm so positive, I promise, went directly to the page for the Charlestown Breachway information. Right now, it goes to a page where you do have to click on the link that says Charlestown Breachway Restoration before you get to that right spot. But we are handing these out throughout Charlestown. We do have a bunch out tonight that you are welcome to grab. Also, I forgot to mention that we have a report of more of that social science research also out on the table if you guys are interested in any of that information. We have also installed something called a Coast Snap. This Coast Snap station is facing the Breachway where the restoration is going to happen, and we invite people to place their phone in the cradle that is there and take a picture, and you are able to upload the picture directly to our MyCoast website, which will look like this. And we will have these signs are going to be attached to the Breachway, to the signage to the pole. They will be attached to the pole in front of the Coast Snap station for anybody to engage in. And this is one of the ways that we are hoping to keep people involved as the restoration goes and over the years as the dunes and whatnot start to grow. And now I will hand it off to Steve to talk about the funding information.
I'm no good with these microphones, so I'm going to do my best to keep it up. Basically, over the past year and a half, we've been putting together the design, doing all of this work, trying to gather funds. Funding has come through. The majority of the funding has come through. We were able to work with CRMC and DEM quite closely, and the governor's office. We were able to get $2 million for the dredging portion of the project. The dredge material from the inside of the pond will go out on the beach. The majority of it will go back to doing the restoration of the beach and back barrier area that we've got planned. We were able to get $5 million put into the budget for the stonework and the restoration of the dunes from DEM. It was placed into CRMC's budget through an existing line item that they have. It was the South Coast Habitat Restoration Fund. So that worked out really well. And then the town has $1.4 million set aside for the project in our Beach and Pond Preservation Fund, which is the fund that we usually use to do the dredging project. Since we have the $2 million from the state, we're able to put that 1.4 into the project itself and make a more complete project. So it looks like we're going to get the majority of the project. I'm going to pass this off to Emily. I believe at this point we're going to move on to the next slide. Basically, we're going to go ahead and talk about everything and try and answer questions at the end and give everybody the information that they need or are looking for.
Thank you, Steve. So you guys have kind of our trifecta of experts here. So after this, we'll do all of our questions. Casey will be the person on engagement and future events. Steve is the person from the town, and I am here as the coastal geologist from CRMC. So I deal with permitting and policy issues that deal with erosion at beaches. So as you can imagine, I'm a pretty busy person. But we're going to be walking you through kind of a high-level overview of what the permitting and design process has looked like. So first, where are we right now? The ebb delta, so where the waves break outside of the breachway, outside of the jetty as you're trying to take your boat out, that has improved with depth and is looking much better than last year. The Charlestown Police Department still has available online their recommended route for accessing the Block Island Sound from the breachway for any boaters who are interested in getting out of Nitigret into the Sound. So still recommend looking at that. The barrier so far is growing and accumulating. So Casey showed you that first images that we started this off with of the first break and then the beach today. That barrier itself has grown laterally aloft. So just looking from aerially, it looks really good. The tougher thing to see is how much it has started to vertically grow as well, which is slower, but it is kicking in. So that means so far, our Band-Aid is working, and it gives us a lot of confidence that the full project is going to continue to see growth in the dune and growth in the beaches. The beaches will be the first thing to bounce back. Dunes, unfortunately, will take a little longer, so naturally those take about 10 years to really come back. We're going to do what we can with vegetation, with bringing in extra sand, but maybe lower your expectations of the dunes looking perfect 2 years from now. Some of the other big things we'll kind of touch on here is that those rocks will be about 8 feet high on average across this whole area. The goal is we're going to do it once and we're going to do it really well. So we kind of got that elevation number by looking at what we're expecting sea level rise to look like and what we're expecting our nor'easters in 50 years to look like. So the Breachway was originally built in the 30s, kind of in its present form. So it held 80, 90 years. So we're hoping that this is going to hold probably 70 to 80 years as well. Or 52. It was built in 52. Thank you, Steve. And then Army Corps permitting is set, so that is a massive load off of my shoulders in case anyone was worried about the federal side of it. And the CRMC and DEM permits, we've been working very closely with Steve, who's been very patient with us as we've been dotting our I's and crossing our T's to make sure everything is good to go. So to kind of recap, again, where are we now? In the summer, fall of last year, we did a GIS review. They got the beginning of the design going. And then coming into this spring, they were able to get that 100% design submitted to the town and then to the permitting agencies as well. Now we're kind of in the summer 2025 period. We're doing our permitting consultation, and we're hoping to have all of those permits out in the next few weeks as soon as we get those final design pieces kind of submitted through our offices. And it's basic stuff. It's like, hey, tell me exactly which sand is going where and which cobbles are going where. Overall, the plans look great. Charlestown has been great partners through the process. This is what everyone's really curious about. What's next? So, we have the money, the plans look good. The hope is to start prepping work in September 15th. So that's kind of after all of the plovers are gone, so we can start getting these areas ready for work. And then that campground with the DEM Charlestown Breachway closes November 1. So we don't want to be a big disturbance to the folks who already have camping permits or are going to be using that area. So we're hoping to actually kick off that construction as soon as the actual camping stops. So that is only a few months from now. So massive kudos to Steve for getting all of this together. After the holidays, we're definitely going to be rolling into that rock work. So it's probably going to look like most of the prep of getting the rocks in place in December and then kind of trying to finish that up in January. Once all the rocks are in place, we can then do the dredging and then take that sand, rebuild the beach, rebuild the dunes, and then the plovers come back in April, so everything needs to pause for endangered species. And so if we don't finish all of the work in spring, we'll finish that last piece of planting that fall. So I've given you a lot of words. Let's look at some photos to get an idea of where this is actually going to be working. So again, first we have to repair from the temporary stabilization point and move inland. That's the rock work. That's going to be up to about 9 feet in height, and then we're going to build that beach and dune area back up with that dredged sediment. So the Breachway, the way it's set up structurally, it has a core of smaller rocks, and then there's these really large armor stones. I'm talking, you can bring in one stone at a time on a massive bed truck, kind of large when it comes to these armor stones. So the first thing that goes in is the core. We're putting all of those Lego pieces together to give a really rock solid center. And that is going to be from where the temporary stabilization went in, moving inland. From there, we bring in those really big armor stones, and it goes on like a nice cover around everything. So those armor stones are going to go on what we just put in, as well as what the temporary solution was from last fall. So this is truly bringing everything up to grade, up to the way that hopefully it'll function for decades to come. After all of the rocks are in, that's kind of the bookend, right? So once you have these in and once it's high, we can take the sand that we're dredging and put it back on the beach. We need to do it in this order because we need to make sure the sand we're putting back doesn't wash right back into where we've dredged it from, right? So once everything is steady, we'll bring in the sand and we'll rebuild our beach and rebuild our dunes. So that lighter yellow color you can see towards the top of the image, that's kind of those beach restoration areas. So if you've been out there recently, you may even see some seaweed or some really high tides kind of coming into that area. You can kind of wade in behind the rocks. Structurally, that's not very good for a breachway. You know, you think of it's designed to keep water on one side and keep sand on the other. So we want to try to make sure that we're giving it its best shot, right? And putting the sand where it's meant to be so that we don't have waves and currents attacking it from both sides. So we're going to fill in with the sand on the beach first. Then these darker yellow polygons that you can see on the screen, these are going to be our artificial dunes that we're rebuilding. So Steve was very smart in the design here with the engineering firm. The idea is that they're going to be a line of defense, essentially, for the breachway. So they're being set up in a way so that waves will hit the dunes first before they hit where it broke last time. right? So dunes are nature's solution to energy and to storms. So we're trying to lean into that resilient component of how can we work with the natural system so that we can keep things moving and keep the tide flowing and the currents moving throughout the Breachway. And then after the plovers are gone, we will come back in with all of our vegetation and we will try to plant anywhere we really can. So there's going to be some restoration of the back barrier dune habitat, which you can kind of see in that top left green polygon. And then we're going to plant the major dune here. We're not currently planning on planting that first dune. Have been kind of referring to it as a sacrificial dune or a temporary berm. It's there to kind of bear that first brunt of damage if it does happen, so that we can give the vegetation on the big dune time to settle, time for the roots to settle in and vegetate and hold everything together. So, if everything kind of goes according to plan, we're going to be starting late fall, November 1, and then hopefully it'll all be done by November 2026. So looking like a very busy year kind of for the Charlestown area down here. But that's the general timeline, the general scope of work. These are all kind of illustrative, quick to get the point across of what is happening and where it is happening. Of course, if anyone's interested in the details, you can always contact our office or Steve's office. We have the plans available. I think they might even be online on the Charlestown Breachway website. And we're also happy to answer any more specific questions that folks have this evening. And then, Casey, are you the next steps?
Very quickly. So very quickly, the only other next steps, besides everything that they just went through, is we'll continue to hand out and deliver these postcards after they have the appropriate QR code on them. We are going to install one other Coast Snap station along with putting the sign on the first one. The second Coast Snap station will actually face in the opposite direction, looking down the beach to the east, to see what's going on in that direction as well. And then everything that they just talked about in terms of final design and permitting. So now we have plenty of time for questions. Oh, yes, everybody else, or Emily, Diamond, do you have anything you want? All right.
First of all, I wanted to mention that Cold Snap is a great idea, but it's not Cold Snap with the publications that are shareable. I've been down there and I realized what it was for, so I figured out how to do that section.
Definitely.
The second question I have, I don't know if it's ruled anything like that. You know, big rocks on the west side, are you gonna send water to the east side?
So normal longshore transport, normal wind direction forces the wave generally to come in from the west going east. So the west side takes the brunt. That's why you see so much more damage to the west side of the structure than on the east side. So no, you won't see any additional change over there. Hopefully in the future, if this goes well, we'll be able to start moving forward with possibly doing a further repair of both sides to improve everything. But we want to try and fix the damage, fix the area that we know gets the brunt of the storms most of the time. Get that all squared away, settled, and then in the future start working towards improving the rest of the structures.
And if we do the west wall, that's going to then add more protection to that eastern wall as well. So it's kind of like a double win, if you will. One, it needs the work now, and two, by doing this, it should protect the eastern wall. And we see that trend of the western sections getting damaged much more all across the south coast of Rhode Island. So it's not a unique problem to the Ninnegrit Breachway. It also happens at the Quantock Breachway as well. On the east side.
Very often.
You know
Yes.
that tip there for,
Yeah.
okay,
So-
displacement.
Yes, and a lot of that damage took place during Sandy. We actually had some of the boulders come into the center of the channel during that storm. Now that storm was opposite. I'm trying to think of the right word to say, but generally our storms force waves to push that longshore transport west to east. That storm came in from the opposite direction, and it did take out a lot more on the east side. We are aware of that. I fish out there a lot, and it is something that is on our minds. But when you look at that photo, if you were around last winter during the storms and the damage to that west side, it really needed to be dealt with. And we're trying to manage the funds appropriately, but trying to hit the immediate piece first and then start working towards the next steps. Yes, sir.
You just mentioned Breachway, and that would be the next approach. West to east storm. I understand that. About a month ago, I was down here, public hearing on things for Breachway, and nowhere in there did they mention anything approaching the 8-foot and 9-foot heights references today. We bet that there they were talking about 4 foot, 5 foot, 5.5 foot. Is it less vulnerable?
So, Bonnie Breachway is really interesting. All the breachways are really interesting along the coast. And I had to give a presentation a couple of weeks ago to a group down there, one of the homeowners associations, and it really made me start to broaden my horizons. So I did a lot of research. I've been studying the south coast of Rhode Island since 1997. And for whatever reason, my jobs have always been to study that and do work on it. So I never was able to find when the 20 Breachway actually was created. There's not a lot of newspaper articles like there are on the internet.
1955.
No, I'm sorry, it wasn't.
The natural Breachway is like a river was recut
I found it.
several times. What did you find for that?
So there are aerial photos from 1960. There is no Breachway. It was created in 1962, 1963 timeframe because the next aerial photo I believe is 1965. And it's there. In fact, all three of them are there at that point. So Nineveh was the first one in 1952 that was created. The Quaney Breachway actually is a lot older than Nineveh because it was built in 1887 because of the life-saving station. So it's really a neat history, and you can go and dig through it. It takes a lot more work to find that information from there, but it was right around 62, 63 when they put that one in. So it's about 12 years younger, 10 years younger than Nineveh. So if you think about it, what Nineveh was 10 years ago, you can see the trend in what's going to happen to Quaney. Now, you're right, in that we're talking 4 feet, 6 feet. Nineveh was built at 8 to 9 feet in the front. It tapered down to 4 feet as you went back behind the dunes. It was quite a distance behind the dunes where they built that. Quaney Breachway was started at 6 feet. So both walls are still right at 6 feet. It was stacked a little bit better. I think they learned some of their lessons from what they did at Nineveh. So I believe it was the same company that was hired to do both, but the more you do, the better you get. Beautiful structure. They also are on a headland bluff, which has got a lot of glacial material, so it sticks out a little bit, which causes an eddy right there. So if you ever fish there, you'll notice that longshore transport at that spot along the Breachway is actually east to west. If you go a little bit down the beach, then you get back into normal transport. So it causes an eddy there, which causes the sand to bypass, which keeps the Quaney Breachway more open, less dredging. So it also protects it with that headland bluff out there in the rock. So there's a lot of little pieces that go into it, but what it comes down to is it's 10 to 12 years younger than the Nineveh Breachway, as it sits today. It does have some damage. It was constructed a little bit lower. They were talking about elevating that back section only up to 4 feet. And I've had a lot of conversations over the past few weeks since that meeting with them. And I kind of explained that I don't understand why you would go to 4 feet and deal with trying to explain the 4-foot elevation when you could just go up to 6 feet and say that you're matching it up to the existing wall. And I think that they agree. I'm pretty sure that's where we're heading now, is to get that elevated to 6 feet, another 2 feet up. You can't really go up to the 8-foot level because it's so structurally sound still. You have to basically take all of that apart, elevate the whole thing, which is going to be a lot of money for the effort. Maybe they'll go that route, but I don't think so. I did get them up to 6 feet though. So instead of going to 4 feet, we're going to be at 6 feet on the west side. It looks like they're moving forward with doing the west side project and working on rethinking some more on the east side, trying to get anybody who was there saw some of the discussion and brought up some beautiful points, and they listened and they heard, and they're going back and taking that into consideration. Yeah.
Always be careful when you have two geologists in a room and you ask us a question on coastal processes. We will talk your ear off. But just to add a couple more of the annoying bureaucratic pieces onto Steve's answer, they're also earlier in their planning process. So we haven't had as many conversations with them yet. They're not in a crisis point. So all of the plans that you're seeing right now are actively evolving. So that'll just be the caveat for the Quaney Breachway.
So it has begun. They have been working on the design work portion of it. The permitting is going to be after they get a final agreement on how they're going to deal with it. My conversations lead me to believe that they are moving forward with the whole project, but they're going to start working on the permitting part of the Quaney Breachway as soon as Charlestown gets the permit, because they want to use the design that we have, and they want to take the lessons that we have incorporated into the project and use them to make it a better project on the west side. So it looks like they're going to be moving relatively quickly now on one part of that project before they start moving on the second. That funding is a whole different story, and that's, I'm not sure. It is not funded at this point, but they will be working on funding sources. On the Quaney one, no, they have to get through a lot more before they get there. Were you at the meeting here? There was enough interest and conversation about, say, upset about some of the design pieces that they have a lot of work to do still to try and incorporate what the community needs and wants. So there's going to be a little bit of time yet. Yes, sir?
We have a Charlestown Breachway question. It's primarily. I'm happy to talk. I just want to make sure all
Just
of
so you
those
know,
are
I was so excited you were having a Breachway meeting. I came all the way down from Vermont to the wrong meeting and went to the Quaney. I was very disappointed that they are not giving public access to the east side of that thing, which I find outrageous, that there should be public access to this. My point is, right now, there is a lot of sand, and the sand isn't highest. When I take my boat out, it is not highest in the back portion of that picture, which was taken at low tide. It's in the middle there right now. What's stopping you from, because right now, if we had some kind of major storm, it looks like if it breaches, it's gonna run right back into the pond, based upon that elevation being lower, where you can see the vegetation there. Why not just start moving that sand back and keep it from
That's the high
being eroded right now?
It's a double-edged sword.
Double-edged.
Yeah, it is. It's so.
Alright.
If I go out there with
Yeah,
equipment right now, and I push that, it's 8 to 9 feet high right
It
now.
is.
As you get away,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
beautiful. It's come back naturally and it's working. And if you go over there, you'll see some of the dune grasses starting to pop
Yeah,
up,
yeah.
really coming together well. Nature wants it to be that shape and that size. It's also, I hate to throw out a number because I might get quoted. I want to say it's 160 feet or so now, where it was all the way back to 1. It's back to what it was prior to Sandy, back in 2012.
I was gonna say,
The distance is better than most people have seen it, right? So that volume of sand that's back up inside there, I calculated it early summer, it was about 40,000, almost 50,000 cubic yards of sand that has accumulated in that area when I just block off a little further down than what that picture shows. We lost 60,000 cubic yards, and most of that was back in the dune area, because dunes were 12 to 15 feet high back in that area. They're gone. That's where the majority of that material was lost that we didn't recover yet. If you eliminate that height of that dune, we recovered everything that we had before the storm plus some, which is great. So it's worked really, really well. If you take that berm that's up there, that 8-foot crest, and you bulldoze it down, we get one of these high tides, one of the king tides. Right now, the king tide is coming up close to the top of that on occasions. If you cut that down by 3 feet, that king tide now is going straight through, so you don't have the protection anymore, and the water's gonna wash straight over through the rocks and cause the erosion. By leaving it out there, you've got the defense for the storm, that 8-foot high material that has to go away. And when you walk down the east side of the beach in the wintertime, you see a big scarp. You'll see where it cuts off and you've got a 90-degree angle, walk out and you've got a cliff there. That's what happens first. That whole scarping system has to move through and go back before it gets to the low area, before it damages the area that we repaired. So it protects it by having the length and the height, rather than having length and no height and get back to a high spot in the back. We've made it so far, keeping my fingers crossed that we can make it another 3 months. When we start the dredge, what we're going to do is we're going to start the rock work, get them in hopefully 2 to 3 weeks earlier than the dredge company. Get that rock work going up to 2-3 feet high. Then we have a place to bring the dredge company in and start building it up from the back out. So right now we're losing more material from the back side on an outgoing tide than we are from the front side on an incoming tide. Because as the water comes up, you've got your high tide level, you've got all of that energy getting pushed up against Elbow Beach, and when you go out there, you can see the scarp in the dune system on the backside. Yeah.
Well, the reason is because the middle is choked with sand, and the water has
It's
only
being
one
forced-
way to go.
Right, and the highest energy is going right up there, and it's eroding from the backside. So we're working on all of these fixes, but it's not, nothing is simple. Every single thing that we do has another way of saying, okay, if we cut that berm down so it's only 5 feet, take that 3 feet of material, push it into that shallow area between the little dune we built and the area, what's going to happen? Well, if we get a storm, I just got fired because I just let the whole thing come washing through and created the mess. By leaving nature there, well, you know, but leaving nature do it, it gives that protection. It's going to produce a scarp during a first storm. If we get 2 or 3 storms in a row, yeah, I'd be concerned. But I think what we've got right now is going to hold up to a lot of energy.
How do you guys see it coming out and how far back are you gonna drag?
So I didn't bring the dredge windows. Most of you have been around for previous dredges and have seen everything that we do. Dredge company, in order to bring them in, it costs us $500,000 in mobilization fees. So right off the bat, to get them here, it costs $500,000. We have to go ahead and make it justifiable to do the dredge. So we have to get close to 100,000 cubic yards of material out to make that $500,000 worthwhile, to make it better than just trucking sand in. So basically, we're going to be looking at, we've got 3 areas that we dredge. We've got the primary basin, which is just, it comes down to just out of our, just right there where the 45 is, and goes back. It goes all the way back to the first turn in the channel. So that's the primary basin. We'll get about 45 to 50,000 cubic yards out of that when it's completely full, which it's not. We'll probably get about 25 to 30,000 cubic yards out of that. We're allowed to dredge down to 8 feet. From there, we have a relief channel that used to go from the secondary basin all the way back up to Top Rock Cove. That now we dredge to 4 feet. That is to produce flow direction and keep the water moving the way that nature wants it, but also the way we want it, and also opens it up for boating. Back by the island in the back there, when you go back, you see a lot of people hanging out and using it. In that area, there's right in front of it, there's a barge that's marked with a channel marker. That's the southern tip of the secondary basin. That goes all the way up to where the channel markers are that go back towards Dock Line. We dredge that down to 8 feet. So we've modified all 3 of them and increased the size so that we've got larger dredge areas. We've got the relief channel now goes from the primary basin all the way through the secondary basin all the way back to Dock Line. And we doubled the width of it. It's still 4 feet. So we've got a lot of material that we can dredge, but we probably can't afford to go much over that 100,000 cubic yard area, and that's what we'll end up getting. So we'll get about 100,000 cubic yards dredged out of it. We'll probably put about 50,000 cubic yards of material on this beach to rebuild the dunes, and the other 50,000 will go down to Charlestown Beach area where we always put it, which is town property, and it removes the issues of property questions. Using federal funds or public funds and public water to dredge public and put it on private property, there becomes issues. So you put it on town property. Hopefully. Yes, so we,
months and you're talking about like.
Steve is optimistic.
so ours, nope, and we've been working very well together on all of this, and I've got what I know from what we've done in the past, and also I've got a little extra optimism going on. I need to get rock work started. That's primary. I can't go and get a contractor hired until after the permits are completed. Permits should be completed in the next week to 2 weeks. They get resubmitted to Family. She's on the ball, ready to go with it. As soon as I get those design questions that we had fixed and changed, we get them submitted, we get them back. Then I have to go out to bid or hire the contractor. That's going to take us some money. I need to get the rock work started before we can get the dredge work going. The dredge company generally comes in around December timeframe. So as soon as they come in, it takes them 2 to 3 weeks to do the full dredge. It takes them a week before to set up, a week or two after to remove. All I can tell you for sure is that sometime between September 15th and April 15th, my thought is that we're going to be 90% complete with the project. So through this winter, we're going to go. And I think Emily kind of said that too. It's just her time bringing the dredge equipment in is a little different. But all of that can be done at the same time. It can be, as long as we get some rocks going, we can get it all going at the same time. I need to ask him. He's been. Yes, sir.
Just, you want to touch on it a little bit, but as far as looking through the dredging on the inside, the area that they nicknamed Elbow Beach area, is that getting it in restoration back?
That's going to naturally repair itself as soon as we get the current from going.
Well, that's what I was wondering. In other words, if you increase the depth in the, that's really shallow there, say towards the boat ramp and all that, RV area.
Yep.
So you're saying you're going to depend a lot on that to work itself there.
Yes. It always does. We've been dredging since 2003, and every time we dredge it out, Elbow Beach ends up growing and extending out.
I've been going through that for 52 years.
Yeah, so you know what it's like, and it will repair itself and go back to what it was 5 years ago or so, without too much problem. The one caveat to that is, you know where the end of the rocks are back in there. That's where our project's going to end. So we're going to come back into there. We're looking at the original plans are 8 to 9 feet for the whole structure back. If we have to save money, we might taper that down to 6 feet instead of 8 to 9. But then the dredge material is going to go behind that and support from there to where it's vegetated currently. So it'll be a slope going up to that. But that's, once you get into Elbow Beach, all that is going to be back to what it was. You've seen it for 50-some years out. I know I had a couple other hands up. Yes, sir.
Speaking of the dredging machines, you speak to your capability of dredging.
Yeah, I can, and I know that you and some others probably won't like my answer. So he's asking about the link channel. The link channel is the channel that goes perpendicular to the main channel going in. It goes from the main channel to the bridge. And it's a straight shot. And it was dredged back in the probably, I always think 83 is the time. And it was Charlie Link who ran that project, which is kind of neat for link channel. Not everybody knows that. So anyway, water doesn't go in perpendicular angles. Water wants to go this way, and if it isn't going to go straight this way, it's an easy turn. You know, when you're doing your plumbing, you don't put a 90-degree on a plumbing fixture. You're going to clog your plumbing, and that's the problem with the link channel. So link channel hasn't been dredged since it originally was. The depth is shallower than what it was, but it's mostly organic material, so it's all fine stuff, it's mud. That finer material is a problem in itself. We can't put that on the beach. We would have to do a marsh restoration of sorts. When they did it, they were supposed to do a lot of research on the improvements, what it did, how well it worked. They did a lot of that work, and you can find it, and it didn't do much. It does give you another access point. But whenever I go after permits, whenever I do any of this kind of work, everybody, and I've got a CRMC person here, so I'm not allowed to look over that. Everybody here, most people here, are thinking of boating and recreation and improvements for that. I have to look at the environmental impact, and I have to get that permit by explaining the environmental benefit, and I can't find it. Because of the way it's set up. If it was more of a wide joint in your plumbing system, you could justify it a little bit easier, but being that 93, it just doesn't change anything. And one of the things that people have been talking about is how to improve water quality in Green Hill, and they use the link channel as, dredge the link channel and improve it. 0.05% exchange between, under the bridge, between Green Hill and Minnetonka. 0.05%. You go ahead and dredge anything, you're not going to improve 0.05% by much unless you widen the bridge and there's a whole bunch of other things. So there's a lot of issues with trying to find that environmental improvement. Yes. So by dredging, basically what we're doing is the way we dredge that relief channel, it's designed for the more natural currents that flow in. So as they come in, they follow that path that we keep trying to maintain and keep working on. Hits the wall on the back side, separates it into two directions. One goes over to the west side, one goes over to the east side, over towards the bridge. The ebb flow actually comes back from the west and cuts through, and most of you who have been on the water for 50 years know about that other channel on the opposite side from the west. That's where it comes out. On the east side, it comes through, and part of that gets diverted and comes back the lake channel, but the majority of it just works the way back through. So there's a very small exchange between those two.
One of my darker days, the channel was supposed to be closed, locked, seasonally. After all the research was done, the decision was made to close it permanently. Unfortunately, it was one of the biggest dominoes that we had property. And it was never closed up, and it ended up filling itself in. And that did one twice. It was actually seasonally closed. It's actually supposed to be fish finders.
Yes, sir.
You certainly talk about some of the geological impacts, and I'm wondering if there's numbers that you're going to have pre and post for things like water flow and chemicals in the water, nitrogen levels, to have measurable, to be able to measure differences that dredging creates, and also eelgrass and other vegetation and animal life.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk for a couple seconds, then I'm going to pass it over to the Salt Ponds Coalition. When you ask for numbers, part of this, the project that we're doing, all of those different studies cost money. So in this project itself, we're not designating any money to do any of the monitoring for that. But in 2003, 2004 through 2006, we did an eelgrass restoration project in the back, which is what started all of this project. So the eelgrass restoration, we restored two areas back in the back. We graded the two sedimentation basins and the relief channel, all to produce more eelgrass, to produce more fish and all of that stuff. So we've got a lot of data that shows what the dredging and the importance of keeping that channel open. We've got a lot of data that shows that importance. During this project, we are not putting any additional funding aside to do more monitoring, but it's been over-studied. Right now, there's, I don't know how many they have, but they've got sensors on the bottom in a couple areas for fish that are tagged, so they're tracking the number of fish that go through, and they've been doing that. We ran into an issue during the last dredge where we had to move a few things in order to do it. So it's been at least 4 years they've had those tractors out, the transducers, so they're collecting data as the fish go by. So the data's there and it is being collected, it's just not part of this project. Okay.
And as far as the water quality data, we have that covered. We do that every year from May through October. Every other week, we've been doing it for a year. So we have data pre and post the last dredge projects, and we'll continually have data here pre and post this project as well. We have a site at Potato Point, and then we have multiple sites to the east going toward Green Hill, and then we also have sites toward the west going toward the western basin of the Niagara. So we will have that data covered, and we just do that naturally as an organization.
Does that include, measurements on the house, being in the ground and all that, like, grass and other aspects of the plant?
So what we do is we do nitrogen and chlorophyll A, and that is our chlorophyll A and the latter being our indicator of algae and the salt ponds. So we don't distinguish necessarily between brown and green, but we look to see what the level of the algal matter is, or the macro algae is. My words are not working, but we also do temperature. We know, as far as submerged aquatic vegetation, we don't test for that specifically, but we test for pH, salinity. So we're looking at all the other water quality factors that you could tie into nutrient growth or algal growth, all those things.
I want to, real quick, I'm going to just add 2 more things, and Emily's going to add something too. One of the other parts to all of that is that we have been working with aquaculturists in the pond, and they are collecting certain data that hopefully will be able to get shared with us. But they do have better improved growth directly after the dredge projects come in. So, and then as it gets filled in, they can see the decline and what's going on. So, been working with them to do a little bit extra research too, and URI does research down there.
One of the URI research things is something we fund at CRMC, which is SAB mapping. So although there's not any one particular thing that this project is monitoring, the answer is a bunch of projects are already doing passive monitoring, which will capture the effects of this work. So there's the fish stuff, which I actually just learned about. We have the water quality monitoring salt ponds. We have the aquaculture. About 40% of the state's aquaculture is actually in Niagara, so there's a large contingent there. And then there's also the subaquatic vegetation mapping that's done through us and the University of Rhode Island. So hopefully we will have answers, and a lot of grad students will have some very fun projects in a few years.
So we have time for probably 2 more questions. So we're going to start with you there.
Hi, this is actually sort of a logistics question, but obviously all the equipment, stones, everything coming down there has got to go down Charlestown Beach Road. So there's going to be quite a lot going on. As people also realize, there's a repair for Charlestown Beach Road. There's also permitting. So I'm just wondering if coordination for street access, closure, big trucks, equipment, all sort of working in conjunction with the town and also the CRMC as released permits.
So I think, as you know, I'm highly involved in all of those projects, and I'm basically coordinating most of those projects. And yes, I can't let any one of those projects fail, or I look bad. So I try to avoid that part and do my best not to look bad. Yes, we're working on trying to come up with ideas and plans for Charlestown Beach Road. As everybody knows, it is very bumpy right now. That is a very expensive project that wasn't funded as of yet. Only a small amount of funding has come through. We're working with CRMC to try and permit something better than what it is, and in the next 2 years, that's going to be fully repaired to what we're allowed to have.
Your vehicles will be enjoying trying to get down there.
Yes. So with a little bit of luck, because of the coordination that does need to happen, and because of the large vehicles and some of the other aspects to the bigger project, there is some stuff that I'm trying to get pushed through a little quicker so that we have the ability to get the equipment down there in a safer way, using that as basically an excuse to try and get something done a little quicker. So hopefully we can get something done on that. There's projects that you're not even aware of that are taking place. We have a invasive species project that is taking place on the east side in the same general area that we're going to be working. So not only are the road projects and the dredging and the rock removal or the rock reconstruction of the Breachway taking place, but there's about 5 other projects that all are supposed to take place this year, which all are going to be stepping on each other's toes. But I think I can handle it and get all 4 of them together, I think.
So not a question, just a comment. I just want to congratulate all of you on a job. I mean, the response to this event has just been phenomenal. You accomplished a lot in a very short amount of time. And I think we as a group are very grateful for everything that all of you have done in your teams. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Right now, there's a moving sandbar that's probably 150 feet outside the Breachway where waves break, which I think I wrote to other people. Is any of this going to change that?
Yes. Yes, it will. So right now, over the year, first of all, it's way better than it was last year. Last year was extremely good. Right.
Because you can see where some of that sand is and some of the beach.
Yeah, it is.
But it didn't go away.
It didn't go away. And right now, it's about 5.5 feet deep at low tide. I was out there today. And basically, yes, that's it. If I was sitting in a bathtub on my boat. So yes, if you got a wave, you've got lower water. So if you end up in the trough, you're going to be a little bit shallower. Through this summer, spring, it's been as shallow as 2.5 feet. It's been as deep as 6 feet. Right now, your best transportation when you're going out, you can go straight through it, and I haven't heard of anybody hitting it, but I still recommend going out and going slightly left. You have plenty of distance, so if you go out and you go slightly left, you're in good shape. If you go too hard left, you're going to hit the Widowmaker.
Wow.
Don't hit the Widowmaker. Yeah, so don't do that. But you go out and make bear left a little bit, and you're in good shape. You can go out and bear to the right. It gets a little shallower, a little quicker. If you go straight, you're okay right now.
It's like a 20 feet, and then it drops immediately to 12 or 13 feet, where obviously you're going to stand. One other thing I noticed, there's like a long rib line that goes north and south, and I never remember ever being there.
Yeah,
So there's still sand that I believe on a westerly moves in, and on the eastern moves.
It's moving constantly. As the tide comes up, it's all getting compacted in. As the tide goes out, it's getting spread out. So it's changing with the tides, and it doesn't really vary in depth a whole lot. So at high tide, it's 5.5 feet. At low tide, it's 5.5 feet because of the way it's working. It's not exactly that. It varies more than that, but essentially. This project, the reason that's out there is we've got 2 main sources of sand that's still coming through, kind of 3. We've got that area that's back by Elbow Beach that when you go out there today, you can see the big scarp. All that sand behind Elbow Beach and all the dune work that's back there is getting eroded away on the outgoing tide because the current is getting pushed up against Elbow Beach. So that's the first source of sand. That's not eroding and going into the pond. That's only eroding and going out. So that's one source of that sand. Another one is the little pond area. I wish I was taller. The green spot. That's a little ponded area. There is flow through that. So as the tide comes up, the water's going in there. That area is getting filled in by wind-blown sand, so it's fluffier and softer. So as the tide comes up, it runs in there. As it goes out, it's pulling that sand out. So that's a little source of sand. And the third one is right here. Right there. Right there. Everything else is about 8 feet high. That spot is only 4 feet high. That spot is lower than the repair that we did. That's why the beach is cutting off there. That's why it's stopping there. That spot is going to get repaired also. That's where we're going to take some of the other parts of the project and try and improve that and elevate that up, which should pull the beach line out further. Right now, the beach is stuck there because as we get storms, waves, tides, it gets up to that point and washes over, giving sand into the channel, putting it back out into that tidal delta. So when those three problems are solved, which this project is going to solve all three of them, it's going to go away on the outside. Not immediately. It's going to take time. It has to move back and forth, and it's going to change and go away. But it is going to go away relatively quick. Probably within a year, you won't notice it. But anybody who's been in and out knows that that has been there in the past. It's almost always been there. It just hasn't been as shallow. And you always not nearly that bad. I'll say since Sandy. You have to agree that it's been something there since Sandy.
Well, the waves break.
Right. The waves break there is
I look at it like it's a navigational map.
yeah, it's essentially a standing wave because of the current. You're gonna have waves.
Has there ever been a discussion
so-
to like the west side?
No.
Breachway and look
Yeah.
at stop
No, that's all right. Yeah, we're gonna have to go soon. I'll just answer that question. So the permitting requirements in order to do that are extreme. But the more important thing is if we extend the wall, either wall, in any way, we're gonna starve the beach beside it, and then we're gonna be responsible for the houses that have lost material because we starved that beach. So there's a lot of things that go into it, but basically permitting an extension would take us 20 years. So there's a lot of reasons that no, that has been talked about, but won't be part of it.
Thank you all so much for coming.